Welcome to MMAFighting.com's Ultimate Fighter 21 season finale post-fight wrap-up show. Did you guys get that? Did you get that? Here we are. We're at the end of a very long week here in Las Vegas. UFC 189 was yesterday. We're still buzzing here, but guess what? There was another UFC card tonight here at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, and unlike last year, which saw the same scenario play out, pay-per-view on Saturday, TUF finale on Sunday, last year ended on a depressing note, a somber note. BJ Penn didn't show up, retired, lost pretty convincingly to Frankie Edgar. This time around, we end on a positive note. We end on Stephen Thompson announcing to the welterweight division that he is a major player, he is a big star, looking forward to his progression. He knocked out Jake Ellenberger tonight with a spinning hook kick. Amazing stuff. We'll talk about that in a second, but first, let me reintroduce these guys. That is Marc Raimondi, that is Shaun Al-Shatti, both, of course, of MMAFighting.com. So let's talk about Wonderboy Marc. Were you impressed with that performance, and do you think he is a real player right now in the 170-pound division?
The reason why I was impressed the most about that performance that the Wonderboy had against Ellenberger is because he came back from adversity. You know, he was dropped in that first round. It wasn't looking good for him, for a while. And Ellenberger seemed to have that gear, the gear that allowed him to beat the Jake Shields and to have those big wins early in his career. And it seemed like that Ellenberger is one who came out, but Wonderboy actually used his wrestling and grappling to kind of keep him in the fight and survive that. And then, once they got back to the feet, Wonderboy is an extremely talented striker, and he took over. So he used the wrestling and grappling to kind of get back to the feet, and then he knocked Ellenberger out with a highlight reel finish and a really cool cap to an amazing weekend.
I got to admit, after his fight against Matt Brown at UFC 145, where he was completely dominated on the ground, I wasn't sure if Wonderboy would ever materialize into anything. Yeah. Now he's won, I believe, 5 in a row. Yeah. This was his first UFC main event. I really, truly believe that this guy can give a lot of the top contenders in the welterweight division some fits. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, he has a very, very unique style and a style that's very hard to game plan against. And, I mean, Jake Ellenberger was ranked, I believe, number 9.
Yeah.
I mean, that puts him right up there with everybody else. I'd really like to see now that Gunnar-Nelson matchup that everybody's talking about. It. The timelines make sense. Gunnar just fought. Gunner's probably going to be in that 13, 14, 12 range. Put that fight on Dublin. Make it the headliner. Dublin loves Gunnar. Everything makes sense.
So a fan actually tweeted me this, and then UFC bantamweight contender Aljamain Sterling chimed in. There's a little name drop for all of you. And he said, no, don't kill off 2 contenders or 2 rising stars. What do you make of that thought process? Should we not do this now? Should we put Thompson against maybe one of the older guys at the top to see if, you can make a star out of him? Or, because Gunnar is 15 right now, does it make maybe more sense to put Thompson against someone else in your opinion, or do you go with Gunnar?
I still really like that fight. That fight is just a really fun, stylistic fight, just first of all and most importantly.
Sure.
But also, I mean, it's not like you're killing off a contender. They're both really young. They're both,
right.
pretty young in this game. They have time to grow. I mean, what it does is it propels one of them much higher than, it gives one of them a very clear path to some level of contendership.
You want that as well?
It's a really good fight, and Gunnar has a little bit of a karate background as well, so there's a little bit of stylistic cohesion there. But honestly, in that 170-pound division, man, I mean, there's not a lot of bad options for Wonderboy. There's a lot of really talented stand-up fighters. Lorenz Larkin is coming off a really big win. That's another guy that I really wouldn't mind seeing in that fight. I think Wonderboy is one of those guys that, like you said, with the development of his wrestling with Chris Weidman and his jiu-jitsu, working with Ryan Hall, has reached a level where we could start talking about him in that top 10 range. So as far as 2 rising guys up against each other, that division is very top heavy right now with the Lawlers and the McDonalds and the Hendrickses and the Woodleys and the Condits and the Matt Browns. Those guys have to fight each other eventually. I think that Nelson against Wonderboy makes a lot of sense.
Let's not forget, he has also worked with Canadian national wrestling team member Matt Miller, which I think is the smartest thing he's ever done. Anytime you can link up with a Canadian, you got to do it. Okay, let's talk about the Komen event. Kamaru Usman capped off the win for the Blackzilians. They started strong. They were pitching a no-hitter. Then they stumbled, and ATT came back. ATT wins the season finale. They won $200,000, but Usman comes in the actual finale and wins $300,000 for the Blackzilians. So give me a grade for this season of The Ultimate Fighter. Dana White told me afterwards he's done doing team versus team. Are you surprised by that? And also give me that grade.
Not surprised. I think that I think that there was high hopes for this season because there was that great rivalry between the two teams, but it just seemed a little flat. And I got to be honest, I really didn't watch a good portion of the season. I kind of gave up.
How dare you?
Kind of gave up on it a little bit, and I caught up with it again at the end, and there were some good fights at the end. But yeah, I don't know. There just wasn't really a big buzz, and I think it was one of the least successful in terms of ratings seasons ever. So I don't know. I think that when we look back, though, I think that Usman is a guy that I think one of the guys that we'll look at and say, hey, this season at least produced someone who could be very good. And he didn't have the greatest run on the show, but I think that he is a legitimate prospect at 170. His wrestling is excellent, is fantastic. His transition wrestling that he showed tonight was great, and he's developed some striking. I was talking to Rumble Johnson about him. He said that he's really doing a nice job in striking too. So I think that at least we can look to a prospect coming out of that season, which is really kind of a lackluster season in general.
So Mark wasn't a huge fan. They also announced the coaches for next season's Ultimate Fighter, and it's Conor McGregor and Uriah Faber, 8 lightweights from Europe, 8 lightweights from America, but they will not be fighting. And Dana White also said that this won't affect the Jose Aldo fight. So with all that in mind, what do you make of this decision? It premieres September 9th on Fox Sports 1.
And it's a United States versus Europe type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Which, that's a team-based thing, right? Like,
sure. But what I meant by that was camp versus camp.
Oh, okay.
AKA versus King, something like that.
Yeah, I got you then. You know what? I'm torn on it because I really do believe at this point, like, the Ultimate Fighter the best move would just be to kill it and create some form of news show if you really need some kind of content. Nobody really watches it. It doesn't generate that much buzz anymore. I mean, Conor's obviously red hot right now. So strike where the iron's hot. But I wonder if it's a situation where absence will make the heart grow fonder. Like, you don't want to overexpose this guy. We just reached some insane. I'm going to use the word I used last night, coronation of this guy, where it's this giant process to reach what we reached last night. It was magical. It was a really special moment. And now you're going to just trot him back out here on a show that not many people watch. I mean, maybe it'll probably increase ratings and it'll probably provide decent entertainment. But I don't know. I wonder if it's almost too much.
What do you think? Are you worried about this as well?
I think it actually lowers Conor McGregor's value in a way, and I think the ratings will increase because he's such a lightning rod, and people do want to watch him and hear what he has to say. But I think that McGregor is one of those guys where he's probably best in smaller doses, in a sense where, when he's talking about the guys that he's going to fight, when he's promoting a fight, he's at his very best. He's at his very best. And in this situation, I don't know if you're putting him in his very best position, to be a star. He's already a star, of course, but do we really need more McGregor right now? I'm sure that, again, the short-term, gain will be good because there'll be ratings, but are we overexposing Conor McGregor going into this big fight with Jose Aldo? I think that the way that Ultimate Fighter is right now, it's not a very popular show, and putting someone like McGregor on it almost makes it seem like McGregor is not as big of a star because he's coaching on this show that not a lot of people watch. On the other hand, I kind of understand why they would do it because, listen, I mean, the UFC and Fox they're in the latter half now of that deal, and the ratings have not been very good, for the Ultimate Fighter. I think Fox is probably very happy overall with the deal because of, the fight nights and the Fox shows have gotten solid ratings, but Ultimate Fighter ratings have not been very good. So maybe there's a little bit of pressure on the UFC to improve ratings for the Ultimate Fighter for that possible extension. That kind of, they want to increase the value of that product. It's one of the hallmarks of the deal with Fox Sports. So they need to get ratings to possibly get a bigger deal down the road. So maybe that's probably why they're doing it.
Moving along, Shaun, Jorge Masvidal had been frustrated at 155. He was searching for that finish. He found it at 170. A great win for him over Cesar Ferreira. And then afterwards, he calls out Matt Brad in a great fashion because he called him out and then just walked off. It was perfect. Yeah. What do you make of that matchup?
I love that call. That was so flippant. It's just like, oh, hey, by the way, and then off.
Holla at me.
Yeah, right. That's great. That's wonderful. Like, that's a good example of, like, you don't really need to try to force something if it's not there. Just be yourself, man. Just throw something out there and then, hey, get out of town. But I'm sorry, what was your question?
Are you on board with that idea?
With that fight?
Yeah.
I really have my heart set on a Matt Brown, Carlos Condit violence fest. Like, that's just, I don't know, that gives me chills, the idea of that fight. We already almost had that fight once. I just really, really want to see that fight. So I'd like to see Matt Brown get busy with that. But I'd throw Jorge Masvidal in there. I mean, he also threw out the idea of a stun gun against stun gun in Japan. I mean, that's fun. I would watch that.
Good times for the welterweight division because now you have two new faces in Thompson and Masvidal that just came out of nowhere today. What do you want to say?
I was going to say Masvidal. I think he has a chance to take a star turn because he's at 170 now. It's a very high profile division, and some of the stuff that he said. I mean, he called out Matt Brown. Not a lot of guys call out Matt Brown, and he said in the press conference tonight that he was a little bit overweight because he had some In-N-Out burger. You know, this guy has a personality that can really make him into a star. He's so honest. He has no filter. He told Shaun and I the other day at media day that he had a couple grand on the McGregor fight and the Robbie Lawler fight, and he ended up winning. This is before the fights, and he ended up winning. So he won the bonus tonight, and he won his bets on McGregor and Lawler. So big win for Masvidal. I think that's a guy that can be a star, man. I think he's so honest. He's got a great personality, and at welterweight he may have more finishing power. He may be even more exciting. So I think look for him in the future to do big things.
Let's give Robbie Lawler a bit of a break. Let's do Woodley Hendricks. Let's do Condit Brown. I think that makes a lot of sense in the welterweight division. One more thing about tonight. Michelle Waterson makes her debut. Much anticipated, long awaited. It started a little slow, caught in an armbar. She got through. It seemed like she was a little nervous, but then second and third round, she finished Angela Magana in the third. She really figured things out. Were you impressed with her? And where's her ceiling? Do you think she could be a contender in this division?
I mean, of course I was impressed. You know, it's a UFC debut. A lot's riding on that. They really believe she can be a star in this division. She had a little bit of UFC jitters, but she got through it, and like you said, she got the win. I wonder about her ceiling in this division because she is a very small 115er. Like a lot of the women are going to be much bigger than her. I think that's going to hamper her when she gets up to the higher ranks.
Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think that she can actually? I mean, she was a former Invicta champion. And strawweight these days, it's like, even if you're ranked 10 or 15 or 13, you don't really know where you're at. Other than Joanna and maybe Claudia and Jessica Aguilar, it seems like one big mishmash beneath them.
Well, there's no doubt she can be a contender at 115 because who did she beat for the Invicta atomweight title 2 years ago? The woman who just fought Joanna for the strawweight title last month. She beat Jessica Penne. So if Jessica Penne is one of the top 5 best strawweights in the world, then why couldn't Michelle Waterson be that too? I think that size may be a little bit of an issue, but her game is not necessarily predicated on size because she's so fast. Her kicking technique and her stand-up is one of the more pleasing to watch in the divisions, and I think she can be a star, man. I really think that she could get the same kind of things that Paige Van Zandt can get in that division. She has everything that you could possibly want, and man, isn't she just the nicest person you've ever met? I mean, she's just
she's a peanut.
That's what a certain coach that we won't name, who may be in this room, calls her. But I mean,
What's wrong with? What is that? A secret?
No, it's not a secret. It's just because she's small.
Yeah, I think it's a nice term.
I'm sure it's a term of endearment, but that's neither here nor there. But I think she can be a star in this division. She has the personality, the look, the skills. Why she can get a Reebok deal tomorrow. Sure. I wouldn't be shocked.
Okay, let's put a bow on this weekend. A very memorable one, of course, for the UFC. We talked all about it last night. We're still buzzing again, as I said at the top tonight. Let's put a bow and give me. I want to know what's one moment. Didn't have to happen yesterday, Friday. Just give me one moment that really sticks out when you think of this international fight weekend, the much hyped UFC 189 card. Is there something that sticks out above it all?
Yeah, and it's hard not to say what happened to the main event because, look, I mean that was the fight that everyone came to see, like it or not. And there was one guy everyone came to see too. It was Conor McGregor. Coronation, superstar making performance by him. But the one moment, if you want to boil it down to one moment, it was that moment after the 4th round between Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald, where the round was over and they were both facing each other in the middle of the cage, and Robbie Lawler spit out a thing of blood, and the two guys just lingered in the middle of the cage, just staring at each other. Seconds went by and they just stared a hole in each other, and I got chills watching that because this was two incredible elite level mixed martial artists going at it, putting everything on the line. They were bloody, they were battered, they were beaten, and at that point the fight was still incredibly close. The welterweight title was hanging in the balance, and that moment was just like, this is what MMA is all about. Like that moment just sealed the deal for me, and no matter what happened with McGregor and Mendes after that, I was sold on that already being the best UFC pay-per-view of all time. After that, I was just like, this is incredible.
Yeah, that was a moment. I was watching the Baba O'Reilly video today prior to the main card, and I was wondering just how many UFC 189 moments will actually make it in this highlight. I could think of at least 3 off the top of my head. Is there one that sticks out for you?
Yeah. He stole exactly what I was going to say, because when I think back to, I was up I was up so late last night just because I couldn't sleep. I woke up even today with like still feeling weird. Like my body just feels weird having experienced that last night.
Are you gonna cry tonight?
Yeah, I know, right? Apparently that was the thing. But yeah, no, that moment where they just stared each other down, like that was so insane on so many different levels. I watched that GIF maybe like 100 times today. Like I just couldn't stop watching it. But if I'm gonna deviate from that and go elsewhere, I think afterwards, after the whole thing was over and everyone's just shocked at this like 3-hour display that we just saw, I walked outside of the MGM Grand and there was just basically a sea of ridiculous Irish fans just erupting in like a parade almost outside of the MGM, and they were just singing the most like ridiculous songs. Like I took a video of one where it was "Where the blank is Aldo, where the blank is Aldo," and they were just going up and down. They did that for minutes, and it was just the coolest sight to see. I will never forget just standing outside of the MGM and watching this amazing celebration. It was really, really something to see.
One negative thing about The Ultimate Fighter coming up with Conor McGregor, I hope it doesn't delay his homecoming, because, and I hope that the UFC has cameras there, because that homecoming, I feel like they're going to give him a ticker tape parade like they did in New York for the women's soccer team. I mean, that is going to be such an amazing scene. I'll throw one out there. I remember after UFC 178, in this very room at the post-fight press conference, Conor McGregor said something that really stuck with me. He said that, "I am confident in preparation, I'm cocky in prediction, but I'm always humble in victory." And yesterday he was very humble in victory. In fact, he didn't go the route of Daniel Cormier and call out his next opponent. I'll never forget seeing the tears in his eyes when I spoke to him in the locker room afterwards. He was very moved by this. He didn't even want to talk about Jose Aldo. It was about his team. It was about, not being self-made and all that stuff that he talked about. This is a guy who's incredibly cocky. He's incredibly confident. But in this moment where he finally backed up his talk, he said, they say I'm just talking, but here I am walking. He finally did it. He called his shot and he realized it, and it all came to fruition, and he didn't rub it in anyone's face. And I think that's a pretty special thing. I think that says a lot about him. So a memorable weekend for the UFC, for our sport in general, comes to an end here in Las Vegas. It all lived up to the hype and then some, and it's going to be fun seeing where this story goes in the coming months. For now, we have to say goodnight. We have to regroup. And guess what? There's no MMA Hour on Monday because I'll be traveling home. But then on Tuesday, we have a special edition of the MMA Hour. Guess what we'll be talking about? Any guesses?
I have no idea.
Any guesses? Anything?
Not much to talk about.
No. We have a lot to talk about, my friends. Can't wait for that. I'll talk to you on Tuesday. For now, we say goodnight. For Marc, for Shaun, I'm Ariel. Thank you so much for watching our coverage all week long from here in Las Vegas. We'll see you next time. Adios.